Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Friday, my friends. Today is Friday, the 4th of March. I'm PH, Paul Hai. He's PH, Phil Hoang. We're all PHs. And what is today's PH, Phil?
Party hard.
You're always partying hard, aren't you?
We had to throw that one in, of course. Had to throw that one in, of course.
I love it. It's a true reflection of you and to many of our listeners. But Friday's a good day to party hard, though. Are you going out tonight?
Who, me? No. But no, I'm not. I'm saving it.
Oh, okay. Well, then, in our honor, I'll go out tonight and I'll party a bit hard, okay?
You do that.
Awesome. Well, we have an interesting episode today, don't we? What is that all about, my friend?
We do. Hello, listeners. Today we are going to talk about Formula One, Drive to Survive on Netflix. So yeah, one of my, I would say my favorite sport that I'll follow for many, many years. And we'll go into reasons why a little bit later. I don't think I've missed the race. I mean, I might have when I say missed the race, I might not have watched it live, but I've kind of recorded it and then rewatched it at a later time. I don't think I've ever missed the race for at least 20 years. I'm putting it out there, at least 20 years.
What?
Yeah.
20 years?
20 years. Minimum 20 years. Minimum. Yeah, I would say since the late 90s I've missed the race. But
wow. Yeah, that's a lot of hours invested into watching some fast cars, mate.
It is. And then we'll go into a little bit later. But, I mean, most people see the race and they think that's the sport. But the sport is only, the cliche is the sport's every fortnight, the race weekend, but any other time other than the race day is actually a business. And I love the F1 business side of things just as much as I love watching the cars go around in circle and the strategy and the pit calls and the dramas and the drivers and the tantrums and all the money and branding like Monaco. So yeah, I love the business side of it just as much.
Wow. Well, I'm sure we've got a lot to share today. Tell us how you actually got into it.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a story, so hopefully the listeners can tune in. I got into it via my cousin. Hey, Jack, shout out. He's French Canadian, and he was over here in the late 90s visiting the fam, and he was watching it when the Senna days. I don't know if you heard of the driver Senna. He passed away in the race. He was watching it, and he got me into it. And he was actually in Australia when Senna had his accident in Monza and died. It was in Australia. I remember watching on the news and television. He was giving me the story. I knew nothing of the sport, and then I kind of, when he left, and I kind of kept a close eye on the sport, but I wasn't really a huge fan. All right, I was dabbling in it because back in the days, late 90s, it was on like late night. It was free TV in Australia. So, the coverage wasn't as good, right? It was on Channel 9. There was no, what we get now, practice. You get the, pre-race. You get the post-race analysis. There was nothing. It was literally the broad bones of the race. And you heard Murray Walker. But yeah, slowly got into it. But then when I really got into it was when two things. One thing was when Schumacher left Benetton and got into Ferrari, was 96, 97 year. I thought, you know what? And he was a back-to-back champion. And I'm like, you know what? If this guy can go to Ferrari and win, I'm going to follow the sport. So, and then guess what? He jumped, I think it was 96. He won his first race, I think 2-3 races in. And I'm like, mate, this is the guy to follow. This is Schumacher, right? One of the greatest of all time. And then in the late 90s, I don't know if we've discussed this, Paul. I suffer from dyslexica, and I never knew how to read or knew how to read, I always had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So what I went and got is a Formula One magazine, and I taught myself how to read via reading these magazines or these articles, right? I would buy the book. It would come out once a month, magazine. I would read it cover to cover. I would just be fascinated about it, be fanatic about it, and I would, learn. I mean, those days was, you couldn't plug it into Google or what does it sound like, right? You just had to read it and figure it out, or maybe ask someone if you didn't know the word. I mean, I still remember the key words. I remember aerodynamics. What is fucking aerodynamics, or unorthodox. The word unorthodox. Unorthodox. Key words like that, just blew me away. And then basically taught myself how to read as best I could, dyslexic. And I would read, and I've still got the books. I've still got these magazines. I haven't sold any or haven't thrown any away. I've still got them in my garage. So, and of course, I've gotten many other kind of Formula One books to read, predominantly Ferrari, because I was a big Ferrari fan because of Schumacher. Mm-hmm. And I was following it through the golden era of Ferrari days, and they won 5 World Championships or 6 Constructors Championship, 5 Drivers Championship. This is in the 1990 to 2005. That's when I really, really followed it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, end to end. So I've seen, the various changing of the guard, right? I was there when Webber scored his first points at Albert Park. I was there on track. All right. Oh, when he was in here.
That must have been exciting.
Oh, it was because even the anticipation, because I think the last 2 laps, the Toyota was chasing him down, and we were at the Brocky Hills. At that time was called Peter Brock Hill, which is the kind of like the straight bend on the Albert Park track. And man, we had the big screen in front of it, and we saw the Toyota spun, and the crowd just went bananas. We went bananas. It was a hectic race, big shunt at the start of the race. I mean, I've even got actually, I hope I've still got it. A war replicated signed photo of the big shunt when Ralph almost launched his car like one of those jet fighters, mate. He hit someone very end. And yeah, we had money on the. We had money. I think my mate had money on Ralph, and the first corner was it, but he lost his money. But yeah, it was a crazy race, and yeah, I remember the Toyota spun, and we just went bananas. We were so stoked. Yeah, and I think it's the first time actually someone finished outside of the top 3 was at the podium at the end. Apparently, this is a story. Minardi Boss and Webber was at the Ferrari garage because Schumacher invited them. And they were drinking all night post-race.
Post-race?
Yeah, post-race. yeah, post-race. So Webber got to rob shoulders, and that's what solidified Webber as a informed or potentially informed F1 driver, which he was. He never won a championship, came close, but he was almost like one of those championships. There's some drivers that are like just good for that one championship, as opposed to like. Some drivers are, multiple. Yeah. He was the one championship guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's so good to see the sport now how it's developed and the awareness of the sport. Right. I mean, I was looking at today, the last race, Abu Dhabi, which was finished in December, had 108 million viewers. Right. Compare that to the Super Bowl that just happened, 101 viewers. So this is bigger than the Super Bowl or the last race.
Yeah, and there's many races, but the last one.
Yes, the last one.
Bigger.
Yes. Yeah, it was bigger because it was the anticlimax, right? It was at one point and Lewis was front and Max was chasing. And
But then again, the Super Bowl had Dr. Dre there, halftime. with Snoop Dogg, with Eminem, with 50 Cent, with
Big
Mary J.
stars.
Blige.
Apparently, Zed played the pregame. He DJ'd. Did you see that?
No, we missed that.
Yeah. I saw Zed because Zed posted up on his Instagram. He was playing the Super Bowl. I'm like, well, you playing halftime? You can't play him halftime with all the big celebs. So I think he was playing pregame.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there you go.
I enjoyed Dr. Dre, and I'm sure many people watch, but more people watch the last race of 2021.
It is 108, so it's massive. And obviously, there was massive controversial finish to the end of the race, but we'll go into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to lean on you to answer a lot of my questions, because I've only been been aware of the Formula One seriously in the last year when I watched Drive to Survive on Netflix, and what a series it was.
Yeah, you're one of the many mates, many mates have just started following recently, purely based on Drive to Survive.
Yep.
Yes.
It was an epic series, I think for 3 seasons that I binged through, and it's given me a ton of appreciation for this. So I'm so excited that we are talking about it today.
Yeah, it's an awesome series, but did you know not all teams are signed up for it? It's only an optional thing. So, for example, Max Verstappen refused to go on it completely
for
the Drive to Survive.
Really?
Yeah. So I think it's a optional thing for the teams to be involved or not, and Max Verstappen refuses to be on the thing, which is unfortunate because to me it's just another platform for them to elevate the sport, and which it has, right? So it's a shame that, F1 don't set the mandate and saying, guys, help us grow the sport.
Yeah, I see. I see a lot of his.
Yeah, you're required to do media. Okay, for example, you're required to come to the awards ceremony. These men, why don't they put the proviso that, hey, you need to be on Netflix's Drive to Survive because it's pure branding, right? If you want to talk eyeballs on your sport, mate, no better platform than Netflix.
Yeah. I did see a lot of his team principal, the Red Bull team principal. He's featured a lot.
Yeah, Christian Horner. Yeah. Christian Horner.
Yeah.
Mate, he's a pom, right? He loves the camera and loves the chat.
He does love the camera. Yeah.
And he loves to whinge too. Oh, I should have seen that last season. Even Toto. Oh. Going around like schoolyard kids. It was more exciting to see them fight it out than the two drivers on track.
I agree, man. Agree.
It was so exciting. Oh, here we go. What are they going to say now to each other? Love it. Well, it just goes to show, right, just how intense the sport can be.
Yeah, it's
when
very
there's
true.
a lot at stake.
Very true. And to our listeners, if you have not watched Drive to Survive, definitely check it out on Netflix. It's pretty amazing. And for me as a first timer, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But let's kick off with numbers, because they've released some interesting stats or data.
Let's break down the numbers, shall we? F1 just announced their earning calls for Q4 2021, which coincided with the end of the year as well. So we just they had the earnings call. So let's break it down, shall we?
We should break it down. Hang on. Actually, I think we need to address the elephant in the room at the moment. Is there a race getting cut this year?
Yes, already. And it was already a stacked calendar, 23 races for the year now. Russia has been pulled. Ooh. And you can understand why. Some drivers are already boycotting before the government body make the call. But I think socially, morally, the right thing to do. Yeah. Sad for the people in Russia because obviously these are nothing to do with the people, but the government making these calls, right? Yeah, so that's huge. Huge news. I think they will find a replacement, which means that one of the races will be repeated, but just titled a different, called a different race, but same racetrack back to back. I'm assuming they'll work something out in the calendar. But yeah, it's huge. So numbers, let's break it down, shall we? My favourite topic, as our listeners have become aware. So, huge year. Let's top it off. Huge call out. 2.1 billion in revenue, F1 2022 calendar. Up a bill from last year, but last year was only 7 races they did, but this year they're up in viewership, up in sponsorship, up in social media awareness. Huge metrics. So 2.1 billion, and really, you can break down operational because half of it goes to the team. They keep half, so they're cash positive. And the key thing here, they have 2 billion cash flow in the bank. Liberty Media. So Liberty Media owns a few other groups. They own a baseball team and Liberty Media Group over in the States. And this is just the F1 component. Liberty also owns the whole other team, but this is just profitable for F1 in isolation. That's what we're looking at here. They have 2 billion of F1 money in the bank. That is, yeah. So they're a cash positive business. And let's go through viewership. Viewership, huge. TV wise, 1.5 billion viewers. Average of 7.3 million average per race. They did a sprint race, which was a sprint race, I think 3 races, which was traditionally a qualifying day, but they turned qualifying into a part qualifying, part sprint race, and you get kind of like a cut down version of points, and that got up 70% uplift in viewership. Huge.
Wow.
40%.
Just because they changed that format.
Correct, yeah. And this year they've repeated I think they got 3 more races, because usually it's the practice, quali, and then race day. But in these 3 races, they played around in format. It was practice, quali, race, sprint race, and then the main race day. And then in your sprint race, the top 7 or top 8 get the points, and then whatever spots they finish, they would start the main race on. So if you finish Q1 or P1, you would get points, and then you would line up with a grid P1. So huge. So that was up 70% uplift in sprint races, and 40% uplift on social media awareness. And then also the esport is huge, and you know how we love to talk about the metaverse and digital platforms and gaming, and esport alone had a collective of 23 million views across digital platforms. That's 103% growth year on year. So even from a digital engagement viewership, it broke all records. And that's the F1 esport series they have online. You can view it online. So which is and most teams will have their kind of like esport drivers drive those cars and play the game. Pretty amazing.
That's the most realistic simulation, right?
Yes.
To all the races, all the locations. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, and I think during the pandemic in 2022, they actually had the real F1 drivers race in those esport race. So yeah, there's a few videos that's quite funny actually. I remember seeing Charles Leclerc. He was I'm not sure if he was practicing or he was racing, definitely a simulator, and he had all set up, and it was on Twitch streaming, and his girlfriend was locked out of the house, and the girlfriend was calling his phone to come unlock the door, and he didn't see the phone or the notification, and she on Twitch popped a message, hey, can you please open the door? Because I'm locked out on Twitch. And he saw it on live stream and he said, oh, guys, I got to go for 1 minute. I need to unlock my door for my girlfriend. My girlfriend's locked out of the house. So, yeah.
Did he crash?
Yeah. No, it was so funny. It was captured live on Twitch. I'll try to find it and I'll embed it into the episode links. It's quite funny.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That was a lot about the numbers and stuff that I didn't even know. So thanks, Phil, for walking through that with us. And while we're on the numbers, how about we talk about the number one protein shaker in the world? And that's this new protein shaker that I've seen around Australia, New Zealand. Shakespeare is the name. Shakespeare is a protein shaker that was founded because it was for a need for a supplement shaker that actually worked before, during, and after a workout. You don't even need to have those little balls inside the shaker to shake it. This thing is magical. The CEO, Rick Birdsell, is an elite level sprint athlete, and he's got many world records. He actually designed and developed this bottle, and Shakespeare actually did a pitch on BBC Dragon's Den. I love watching that series, and believe it or not, 2 dragons invested in it. They put a whole bunch of money into it. And why did they invest in it? Well, this thing actually has a patented spherical top and base design, which allows you to shake whatever you want in there and mix it really well. And it works like magic. And so you can use that for your protein shakes, your smoothies, mixing drinks, maybe that mojito. It's a game changer. And it is touted as the best shaker in the world. So remember that, fellas.
Thanks, Paulie. And thanks for Shakespeare sponsoring our first episode. That's sponsored.
What? They're sponsoring us?
Yes, they are.
Oh.
And they're giving away 3 bottles. How are you going to win these bottles? How are we going to give these bottles away? Comment our LinkedIn post comment why you need this bottle. Like our Instagram and Shakespeare's LinkedIn page as well. And we'll do a live draw. So, yeah, jump onto that. Hope you win.
I can't wait to give these away. We've never given anything away on our podcast, so this is quite special.
This is the first time. How exciting. There's a lot of firsts.
A lot of firsts. So good luck, guys. Can't wait to hear your comments. So how about we go into our next segment, and for those that are new or don't know too much about Formula One, I've got some great questions that Phil's going to help us answer. So should we go for that?
Far away.
All right. So I've always wondered, how many teams are there in Formula One?
That's a good question. It fluctuates. It's purely based on who the entries are. But at the moment, there's 11 teams, right?
11 teams. Okay.
Yeah. In the past, there's been like 13, even 14 teams from memory. Yeah. But obviously, the teams, you know, the legendary teams are the ones of Ferrari, McLaren, brain freeze at the moment.
Mercedes.
Oh, yeah, Mercedes. Yeah, Mercedes, Red Bull. They're the big 4. And it's almost like a split between, you know, it's not advertised, but there's a 2-tier system, right? The big 4s are the big dogs of the grid, right? So they're the ones that are won the most championships collectively. And then you got the mid-tier teams, which is, you know, the ones that are, you know, to say lack of funding. So, you know,
right.
In terms of, you know, they're fighting the mid-grid position, right? They're fighting for the points as opposed to fighting for the whole championship, right?
Gotcha. And so there's 11 teams. What about the drivers? How many drivers would there be?
Yeah, so there's 2 drivers, 2 cars per team, so therefore there'll be 2 drivers. Plus, each team has a reserve driver, but there's 2 active drivers on the grid. But then the reserve driver, can fill in if someone had COVID. For example, a few of the drivers had COVID last year, or they're injured in an injury. They can just call up the reserve driver, and the reserve driver will just slot in. And mostly the reserve driver is there almost like test driver, aka test driver as well, behind the scenes, that do the simulation driving, but also the track testing as well.
Okay. Yeah. So does that mean when they start the race, there's 22 cars on the grid? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Not all 22 cars will finish the race, but 20 cars will start the grid. Yes, that is the grid formation.
Gotcha. And I think you touched on this, but if you can explain, what's up with the team names?
Team names. Well, I mean, F1's become a bit of not just a sport, but as you know, it's become a bit of a marketing platform, right? So some of the names are brands that are got nothing to do with motorsport, but it's just a pure branding thing. Mm-hmm. Red Bull's probably one that comes to mind. They don't sell any automotive product at all, but they're an energy drink. Right? I remember when they came in the sport in the mid 2000s. They were the party. They were the party team. They had their pool, they had the party pool with a Monaco, because it was an energy drink, right? They had this youth, and then slowly they became a dominant force. I see. Yeah, so most of let me think, Red Bull's definitely one that comes to mind in terms of branding, but your Ferraris, your McLarens, your Mercedes, they all sell cars.
Correct.
All right, so it just eyeballs onto their brand, right? And then the mid teams are more, entrepreneur owners that want to get in the sport. They just purchase the team, and then they're going racing, right? They're probably the entrepreneur people, the business people around, and they want to be involved in sport, right? Just like how Aston Martin at the moment is owned by, one of the Canadian billionaire, which is, getting his son to drive the car.
Okay. Yeah. I see. Nice. And how many races in 1 year?
Last year was 21 races. The year before was 20, and this coming season, 23, is 22 races. So it's packed. I remember the sport used to finish around October, November. It's going all the way to December now for the final race. So, great for the fanatics like myself. Mm-hmm. It's F1 all year round. And I can't believe a race is about to start in another month, less than a month away. So, yeah. And
is that 22 different locations? Yeah? Around the world?
23, yes. Good question. Now, last year wasn't, because last year they repeated some of the circuit races, but they called it a different name, but it was another race.
Okay.
But that was more COVID. But I think, traditionally, each race is a different track.
So they're moving around countries or cities.
Moving around, It's
Gotcha.
one of the global sports that is global. Yeah? Meaning it moves country to country, to continent to continent.
Wow. So every 2 weeks, it's basically they move all the equipment, all the cars, everyone.
Correct. Yeah, it's a logistical juggernaut. You think about it, right? And some races are even back to back. So that would have, if they once they have a European season, they would have 3 races back to back. Like that's 3 weekends back to back. So as soon as they finish the race on Sunday, they start packing, and they need to be set up by Wednesday, Thursday, the following week, right? And first Friday practice, they need to be ready. So you talk about logistics, they've got it dialed down.
Well, I love talking about money. How much do they win?
Ooh.
How much can you win in Formula One? I want to know this.
You want to know. Well, so the expected revenue is about 1.4 billion. All right, wow. Total. That's total revenue, and they split that 50%. So 50% the organisers keep, as F1 governing body get to keep as running the sport, and the 50% gets divvied up by all the teams. Yeah. And that
Evenly?
50%. That's a good question. Depending on which team you are. So let me pull up the breakdown, because it gets a bit hairy here when you read it. Because I was looking into it, doing our research, and I'm like, what, really? Yeah, because I forgot, right? And let me break this down to you. It's so out of the 50%, 25% goes to equally divided to the top 10 teams, right? And then the remaining 25%, okay, gets divvied up in terms of Constructors Championship position. So I know a lot of people only aware the Drivers Championship, but there's actually two championships. It's actually the Constructors Championship, which is the total aggregate team points. The team that finishes the most points ranks higher, and the money gets paid on the Constructors Championship position, not the Drivers Championship position. So, for example, devil's advocate here, if the Constructors were number one, they took out the championship, and they didn't win, any of them didn't win the Drivers, it didn't matter, because F1 only pays on the points on the Constructors position on the championship.
I see. So Mercedes got all the money.
Recently, yes, they've won eight times consecutively, which has never been done before consecutively. Okay. And this is where it gets a little bit, let's just say, there's been some past legacy handshake agreement that it's kind of flowed into the current kind of agreement, right? Add all that, 50%, because 2.5 goes to Ferrari for special contract of F1. I don't know what the special contract is. They just get a 2.5% extra on top of everybody else, and they get veto voting rights as well. So that's why Ferrari, if you're a Ferrari fan, you love it. They get more money and they get the more votes.
True. I see. And all these teams, is every car different?
Yeah. Well, based on the formula, yes. Based on the formula regulations, every car should be different. You can't go and, if you enter the team, you can't go buy your car. You need to build your car, all right? But we use you down to it. Some components you can buy, some components you need to develop yourself, yeah? So, for example, will be, your steering wheel, or braking, ducts, or, there's what they call a shared part. So the bigger teams make extra parts. They can sell those parts to the smaller teams. Gearboxes, engines, that could happen as well. Mm-hmm. That has happened in the past, right? So there's an engine supplier, and then you're going to build the chassis. Engines, and traditionally you purchase. The mid and tail end of the team will just purchase the engine. But if you're a constructor, you have your own engine. And then if you're a engine constructor, you can actually sell your engine to other teams as well.
Yeah. Why would they sell it? Is that
it's more money.
It's
more money, but also help the sport out too, right? Because the small teams don't have that much money to develop their own engine because there's a lot of cost, right? Mm-hmm. So at the moment, the engine sponsors or engine suppliers are Honda, which they're leaving, which I'll touch on in a minute. They're kind of staying because Red Bull has purchased their engine IP. So actually, Red Bull, as of 2022, will become their own engine manufacturer. That's massive for them. So they've always been a customer from an engine perspective, right? But now they make their own engines. Wow. Mm-hmm. So that's and then the Ferraris have their own engines, and the Mercs have their own engines.
Okay.
Yeah. So and then Renault, Alpine have their own engine. So there's really 4 engine suppliers, but now it's 3. But Red Bull have 2 teams, the main Red Bull team and AlphaTauri, which is their kind of secondary team. They supply 4 cars.
I see. Well, it's good to hear that, the big teams support the small teams and these parts and everything, because, a race wouldn't be not a good race with, like 3 cars or less cars, right? It's more exciting when there's more cars on track, I would assume.
Yes, but I have seen races that like started with 1 car on the grid, or because of a wrong call, or back in the mid 2000s, there was like 2 tire suppliers at the time, and then it was deemed unsafe, and there was only like 6 cars on the grid in the US US race. It was shocking to see. Like, I called my brother and said, "There's only 5 cars on the grid." Start the race because everyone else retired.
I see.
Yeah, because of safety reasons.
Yeah. And how many, like per team, how many staff would make up a team?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, somewhere between 800 to 1,000 people.
What?
Like
wow,
the whole team.
In one team?
In one team, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. So each team, has sponsors a lot of jobs. One team. And, you got to think about if you're an engine manufacturer and you're the main team, for Mercedes, you'll be 800 to 1,000 people. Because you think about engine department, aerodynamic department, right? And then, the people that they take on the race is between 50 and 80 people each race weekend. You can think hospitality people, the marketing, the sales, the mechanics, the engineers, the analysts, the drivers themselves, the team principals, right? The management team, they all go to each race, right? So it's a huge. You think about it, there's 10 teams, right? So there's a lot of people working. And that's why, for me, it's so fascinating, right? It becomes a business side, right? You try to manage 1,000 people.
That blows my mind. I didn't even know that. Wow. And who's the best team at the moment? Or the best teams?
Well, depends on perspective. Are you talking where the championship finished? Or are you talking how many win streaks they've had? Or, I mean, Mercedes is the best constructors team.
Yeah.
They've won 8 in a row. 8 championships in a row. Lewis only missed out on championship last race, so we discussed on his 8th championship. So it would have been, it would have been massive.
Yeah. And what about the worst? Who's at the bottom?
Have to be Williams, or the I can't remember their name. The Russian. Oh, Hans Racing? Hans?
Yes.
Hans?
Haas.
Sorry, it's Haas.
I did see their team principal on there a lot.
Yeah. He is.
On Netflix.
He is, yeah. Oh, yeah, Netflix. Yeah. Scheigen, whatever his name is.
Yeah. He's quite fiery as well.
Yeah, he's a fiery. What national is he? Is he Austrian? I think he's the same as he thinks he's Austrian, yeah, but fiery. Yeah. I mean, that would be kind of from a constructors, yeah. There was Williams is slowly turning over because they've sold the team and it's a private equity group, and they've finally got money to invest into the teams and each vertical, and they're slowly coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Williams had their best finish last year in many years. They scored their first points. So it's exciting to see George Russell score his first points with the Williams team, because he's been there 3 years, and now he's been he was always a Mercedes junior driver. Now he's 2022 going to be racing next to Lewis Hamilton.
Wow, that is huge. And I guess that brings us to this question. Why did they do a Netflix series?
It's a good question. I think in 2017, I mean, you always think about these decisions from a business leadership perspective, right? That's how I think of it. In 2017, F1 sold to Liberty Media Group. for, I don't know, 9 point something billion AUD. I think it was £6.5 billion. And it's a media group, right? So they know how to get the name out there, and what's the better platform to do it on is Netflix. So I think they did it purely because, the sport is so big and there's so many stories to tell, right? And what better platform to do it in a long format in Netflix, right? Because when you watch it on the weekend, you don't know all these backdrop story, what's going on, driver, intra team battle, not just the competition, right? You're competing, the two drivers competing in the same team. So you don't know that until, if you really watch it, like how I kind of watch it like a fanatic, right? But yeah, I reckon it's worked. From my personal experience, I've had so many of my friends follow the sport now, as opposed to they knew nothing about it. So yeah, I think it's definitely worked. Them putting eyeballs on screen. The only thing that I don't like about it, you got to wait a whole year before that episode before the whole series drops. It'd be good if they did it like live, like maybe 3-4 days post race, and they can have it up. That's cool. If they can, compress that, you would have to wait a year, because at the moment the next one comes out, I think March the 11th.
Yeah.
For the season 4 Drives to Survive, but that's like they finished it 3-4 months ago. So I think there's room for improvement. If they can do it quicker, even do like a mid-season recap, that'd be good. Because mid-season they do break for the summer break, and they're off for 3 weeks.
Right.
So there is a bit of a summer break season in the middle. So maybe they're going to do it then. But yeah, I personally find the series amazing, because just another platform I can watch F1 about.
Well, I'm excited for 2022. What is going to happen in 2022, Phil? Is it the same as 2021?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, we're going to have another hour. I'll have to tell you all about it. It's a new regulations. So Formula One, every 6-7 years, they have a new formula. That's why it's called Formula One. And it's a mandate of, the new rules. And 2022, new rule changes, right? More aerodynamic changes. There's been engine free, so there's frozen the development of engines. So the engines are pretty much maxed out now. They're using, turbos, hybrid turbos, is what they're being using. Yeah. So there's engine freeze there. So that's probably one key difference. So no more development on the engine. They're tightening up the aerodynamic testing regulations. So in order of last year's championship, aerodynamics or wind tunnel testing, right? So the highest championship gets the least amount of wind tunnel time. So the team that actually has the worst performance gets more wind tunnel time, right? So there's a swing there, yeah. Between so they're hoping to balance the grid up a little bit. So the thinking is the worst performing teams the year before has the ability to catch up, right? So that's key. That's going to be, and then there'll be they started a budget cap last year, but they're going to go down the budget cap as well. So each team, there'll be a budget cap of each team to run. So back in the old days, like just say 2000, when Ferrari won those 5-6 championships, there was no budget caps. So any team can spend any money they wanted to.
That seems a bit unfair.
That. There was, yeah, there you go. This is unfair, yeah. So, no different to EPL, right? The biggest teams will buy the biggest players, right? It's how it used to work, but they want to kind of create a bit more of a fair play. So, yeah, they've got a budget cap. Each team are, for 2022, limited to 140 million. I think that's USD. each team. So there's a cap. That's good. So it's even racing. Hopefully, right? Because there'll be a cost cap, and hopefully there'll be a good outcome. And I think the key thing about this aerodynamic formula is hoping there'll be closer racing. So I don't know if you've heard, kind of like when a car is following another car behind, is what they call dirty air. So dirty air comes off the car in front because the car in front's cutting a hole in the air, and then all the dirty airs when you're following kind of goes on to the second car that's following, but it disrupts the airflow a lot. So it's hard for the second car to pass or hard to keep close because of the dirty air, and that's why they introduced DRS for overtaking button, etc., give it more kilowatts in the engine and more, or the wing as well. But this year with the aerodynamic, it doesn't disturb that dirty air as much. So hopefully we're going to see even closer racing this year. So very, very interested to see how it all pans out.
I see. Well, what is your prediction for this year?
Ooh.
I want to know.
Oh, jeez. That's a good question.
Who would you pick?
Good thing is
Constructors.
My good thing is when there's a new formula, you just don't know. You just don't know. So, or you just don't know. You just don't know at all. So, I mean, you kind of think the bigger teams that Mercedes and Red Bulls are probably in the seat, but hey, who knows, right? And last year, you got to think about it, when they start, because everything's on a budget cap, so they can't, and they were fighting for the championship, Mercedes and Red Bull, pretty tightly last year, so they couldn't divert resources to their 2022 car. So has it handicapped them? And for example, the teams that are just finished outside, they weren't even the championship races, like McLaren, Ferrari, Alpine, they weren't in the championship hunt. They were way off it. They would have diverted all the resources to the 2022 car. So you're going to consider that too, right? If you consider that, then my bet will be on the three that were outside of the championship race, Ferrari, McLaren, and Alpine, to maybe have a head start. And then Red Bull and Mercedes probably by end of the year will bridge back that deficit, if there is any deficit in their car, for example. Because obviously the development race starts from race one, and then they continue to evolve the car and develop the car all through the year, right? So they might not have the quickest car to start, but you can bet with all the people they have, and they've won 8 championships, they think they could develop a car. It becomes a development race.
I see. And the winning driver for 2022?
Ooh, I'm going for Lewis, because personally I want Lewis to win the 8th championship.
Is it 8?
Drivers' Championship. Yeah. So he's 8. Okay. He's on 7 now. So he's basically on the same as Michael Schumacher.
Okay.
7 World Championships. He needs one more to be greatest of all time. Now he's on par to the greatest of all time. But I mean, statistically, he's the best driver anyway. The most poles, the most wins. He just hasn't had the last one, the most championship, which he could have. He was maybe 3 laps away from achieving that. 1 lap away. No, 1 lap away from achieving that last race last year.
Yes, with a ton of controversy.
I'm going for Lewis, but yes, huge. I'm going for Lewis. But anyone can win it. Anyone in the top 4 can win it. So it'd be interesting to see.
Exciting.
With that said, Paulie, I think that's another episode of PHx2 podcast. Thank you again for all the listeners. We've received so many feedback So many positive feedback. I love it, Paul, when I see messages of people taking notes. Literally listening to our podcast and taking notes and give us those constructive little nuggets of information. You know what? Kudos to you. Keep doing it. We love it. Paul and I have a very open mind approach to this whole exercise, this whole journey. So no doubt our 100th podcast episode will be better than our first. I have no doubt in that. So thank you. Can't thank you enough. Watch out for the promo for the next podcast, which is, Paulie, what is it? Are we going to talk about it?
Should we tell them next time?
Yeah, maybe watch out for the promo. It is a book, yes.
We'll give you that.
Yes,
we'll give you that.
Yeah, okay. Okay, there you go.